there's no final.
So I'm going to call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order.
That owner hasn't bought the filter yet.
Okay, notice of this meeting was published by the county clerk's office in accordance with all applicable laws. We have all in attendance for our committee this morning, which is great. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. All right, so first item on our agenda is the minutes for the July 20th meeting. I need a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion.
Supervisor Toma, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Supervisor Milliken. Any questions related to the minutes? Or corrections or comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. We'll go on to discussion items. We're going to adjust the order slightly as District Attorney. Oh, did he get in? Okay, good, good. So we're going to start then with the District Attorney quarterly report. So I will turn it over to our District Attorney.
Where would you like me?
Yeah, right at the podium will be good. Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all. Good morning. I'm Mark Benson. I'm the Washington County District Attorney. So this is my first of these. So I'm not sure exactly how these are all going to work, but I'll just give you a quick update on our office and talk a little bit about the quarterly report and the pillars and the goals that we have. So our office is one of 16. There's 16 members of our office, 6.5 lawyers, and the rest is support staff. We have an interesting situation in that our office is funded. All the lawyers are funded by the state. Myself and the other lawyers in the office are paid by the state, and everything else is paid by the county. All the support staff is paid by the county, as well as obviously our office space and the supplies. And then our victim witness has an interesting scenario where they get about a 50% grant from the state for depending on how many victim witness fees are collected throughout the state through the year. So we have sort of like a couple of different ways that we get the county budget. We certainly appreciate all of the support from the county. Right now we're in a little bit of a challenging spot. We're down a couple lawyers. It's as you hear all over the place. You look out and about, help wanted signs everywhere. And unfortunately for us, the lawyer market isn't a great one, at least with regard to what they're paying. So we're down 1.5 lawyers right now. 1.5 is going to be filled in a little bit. We have a shared position with Ozaukee County, and that individual is going to start in another month. So, and then we have a full position that we're hopefully will fill anytime in the very near future. So that's what's going on there with regard to our office. One of the with regard to the quarterly report, we do have 2 pillars, and each have a couple different goals. As you can tell, the first pillar is generally call it under the auspices of crime reduction, and that's under the that's really under the global initiative of evaluate and enhance the drug-related programming that our office has in conjunction with the other stakeholders in Washington County. And specifically, that's with regard to the drug treatment court, as well as deferred prosecution agreement programs. Unfortunately, drug addiction is a major part of the community. Individuals have a lot of drug addiction issues, and every day there's more cases that come in with the individuals that are either overdosing or just have the possession of the various drugs. The drugs of choice keep changing. It's heroin and fentanyl for a while now. Unfortunately, we're getting a bunch of methamphetamine. But we do have an up and running drug treatment court. It's going really pretty well, I think. We have a lot of other community stakeholders involved, including the judges. Judge Giernoth is the Drug Treatment Court judge, now formerly Judge Martins. We also have tie-ins with Department of Corrections, Human Services Department, the Public Defender's Office, the Sheriff's Office, and then we work very closely with Elevate. There are case managers for that. So one of the goals that we have with regard to overall, I guess we'd call it crime reduction, is to identify metrics for success for the drug treatment court. We meet weekly, and the deferred prosecution agreement programs. Those are two separate programs. The drug treatment court are individuals that have been convicted of crimes that would otherwise likely go to prison, and they come initially once a week, then twice, then once every 2 weeks, and then once a month to drug treatment court. It's roughly a 16-month program, 16 to 18 months if they can successfully complete the program. And we fortunately have had several graduates from that program. We had six. We've had six last year, and each of those, the graduations, we have one coming up tomorrow. Each of those graduations is really an amazing thing. I think the individuals really feel a sense of self-worth, and hopefully they'll go on to continue to at least keep their drug addiction issues in remission, or at least to not relapse. But it also helps them to get positive feedback from the court system, jobs, and the like. So one of our goals is to identify some metrics for success and for that program, and increase the number of graduates is another goal for the drug treatment court and deferred prosecution agreement programs. Deferred prosecution agreement is a program where it's usually a possession case, and they plead guilty to a charge, and then they get treatment through Elevate, and if they can successfully complete the program, the charges are dismissed. Whereas in drug treatment court, it's you still have the conviction, but the benefit to you, the benefit from both programs, ideally, is to address their drug addiction issues, and not have that reoccur. With regard to the DPA program, the additional benefit is you get a felony level charge dismissed if you can successfully complete that program. And then another goal of that program would be to continue to assist in researching and identifying and securing and funding for inpatient treatment. There's a significant need for inpatient treatment, particularly for females in the county. So hopefully that with other individuals that can occur. Another overall initiative that we have is just looking forward is to improve efficiencies and enhance workflows and office operations within the district attorney's office. General pillar is secure and sensibly regulated. Ultimately, the goal really is to improve internally some timeliness for getting cases in the system. We get cases every day from various departments, Sheriff's Office, City of West Bend, City of Hartford, Village of Kewaskum, Germantown, and Slinger. And just to continue to process those cases responsibly. As our office continues to grow, also to have develop peer-reviewed procedures for each function in the office. There's continually, with regard to both COVID and other issues, there's constantly people, even in an office of 16, I know there's a lot of departments that are much bigger than our department, but even in an office of 16, it's just amazing how every day there's something unpredictable that goes on. Somebody has COVID, somebody has a health situation, somebody has a kid situation, and we have a great office, I believe. People are constantly covering for each other, but just to help with streamlining so individuals can cover for each other. And then with regard to cross-training within the office as well. Our office, fortunately, with regard to staff, we have probably going to jinx us now, but we don't have an incredible high turnover. We have longevity within the office. And I think that's for a lot of reasons. I think that speaks well to the county, that from the county employees' perspective, it's a good place to work. Hopefully somewhat it's because of how we run things in the office that people enjoy the office as well. But as I look forward, there are a lot of individuals that are maybe my age, mid-50s, or maybe a little bit older, and at some point will be thinking of going to the next stage in their life. So it's nice to have within the office the ability for people to advance and cross-train, and I just got to look forward to the future. So those are just this is sort of a work in progress, and I look forward to meeting with you guys quarterly, with all of you, excuse me, on a quarterly basis. I don't know if you want to ask questions, I certainly try to entertain.
I think before we open it up, I appreciate you coming in here and being part of this program. Just a reminder that we're not here to micromanage the district attorney or to grill him on why something's not done. You know, our district attorney is accountable to the county as a whole and the voters. And, you know, he's choosing to participate in this, and the accountability really is the self-accountability of reporting every couple months and monitoring that way. But we can definitely ask questions and want to see what questions people have. Chairman Schleif.
The Wisconsin Counties Association will be considering a resolution next month to increase staffing in district attorneys' offices across the state, largely due to needs due to Marcy's Law. Have we seen any changes in our office with respect to that?
Great question. With regard to Marcy's Law, our office had really been doing a pretty good job, I believe, in keeping victims apprised of things and the like, and following. We really truly had been really constitutionalized the victim rights laws. There's a few things that made it a little bit more of a challenge, but I think we've really overall done a pretty good job incorporating most of the aspects. There's some things that we needed to change with letting people know for initial appearances, their first appearances, what was going on. But I think generally we're okay on that. I think as looking forward on funding, I could anticipate with regard to county level, possibly needing another half or a full-time victim witness person. We have two people in our office that deal primarily with that. And maybe in the future we might need another individual. I think the broader and more significant problem for DA's offices in our office as well as around the state is just truthfully the low pay for lawyers. And I think it's really a statewide issue. And while we're having challenges in our office, Sheboygan County, they're down several people. Fond du Lac County, we just cherry-picked one person from Fond du Lac County that'll be starting in a month. They're going to be down several positions. And it's just the realities of it are if you're coming out of, you're a young lawyer and you're looking at different positions, being a prosecutor, I think is the best for a lawyer, is really truly the best job in the world. With that said, there's a lot of good jobs out there, and at some fundamental level, you got to raise a family. So if you have a choice between job X and getting paid X and getting paid 1.5 or 1.6X, you at some fundamental level, you even if you'd rather do something else, you're going to choose that. So I think, truthfully, a real significant need would be to get that. And we're not talking crazy money. We're talking literally just if you bumped it up a few $1,000s across the board, which I know the county can do. There's all this ARPA money and also their money, not the county. I mean the state can do.
Thank you.
And those pay rates are set statewide, correct? Because the state funds those positions?
Yes, yeah. And sometimes there's a little flexibility. Right now, we're not in the flexibility front. If you can get a person from another county, that's great. Then they can kind of make a lot. I've been fortunate in the past, and I've gotten some people from Milwaukee County and whatever their pay is in Milwaukee, it would shift over. So for them, it's kind of a nice thing. You're getting the same pay. You don't have to pay for parking. Maybe it's a shorter commute or whatever.
Yeah.
Works out maybe to be a net thing, but it's really the problem really is the starting level. And then also if you wanted to get somebody like right now, there might be somebody that's interested that has 6, 7, 8 years of experience as a lawyer someplace, as a defense attorney or something else. And someone like that, for them to expect them to start at the same rate as somebody coming out of law school is insane,
Yeah. So the flexibility of the rate, it's a standard rate for starting new attorneys, regardless of background, experience, past earnings, or.
There have been in the past. Sometimes there's some flexibility to get somebody that has some experience to bump them up, and we've taken advantage of that when that's out there. Right now, at least for the next couple of weeks, that's not the case.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Other questions, Supervisor Conrad?
Well, how would we go about sharing your voice with for that concern? Of the pay that the state provides you all, that's a limiting factor.
That's a great question. Thank you. I mean, I think, anything we can do to, contact our legislatures. I try to have a pretty good relationship with all of the legislators. And I think if they get it from a couple different angles, maybe it would kick in.
It's election year.
I think the other thing is anybody who's going to be at the WCA annual conference, that's going to be a time to make sure that advances, because the WCA is, as a group, pushing that legislation. They're trying to get legislatures to sign on so that they can get that passed. Yep.
That's a good.
I think it was historically, it went back to Tommy Thompson in the 90s, where it was pre-90, it was before my time, 95, 96, it was everyone, prosecutors were all, it was county by county. And then you could have a range of different pays by county. And then it seemed like a good idea to make it across the board. But, just the reality of it is it's great for certain places up north. I think when that first happened, you're getting paid the same as somebody in Milwaukee. When the cost of living is a lot less.
Yeah.
That's so anyways.
Yeah. Okay. I think one thing I noticed on here, I like that we're looking at the number of graduates for the drug treatment court. I think that's really important. When you start measuring things, sometimes what you measure can be important as well. There's always the old story of the place that started measuring, the factory that started measuring output. And they got more output, but their quality went down. With our drug treatment court, if we have more graduates, that's great. But I want to make sure each of those graduates is positioned to have the least likelihood to relapse. And so I don't know to what extent we could have measures, and it may be way too soon to even start working on these, but to have measures related to recidivism, relapse rate. So we can see that we're producing people who are staying drug-free and being valuable members of our community rather than re-engaging in criminality.
Yes, I think what you're saying, to just understand, is to also look at the graduates, among the graduates, what their recidivism, hopefully non-recidivism rate is, and the like. Yes, and I think we're going to seek to do those sorts of things. So and I agree. We don't want to dumb it down, crank out the graduates to we cranked out our graduates from 6 from last year to 12 this year. It is an intensive. The reality of it is that obviously you can't totally predict what anyone's going to do when they successfully complete the program or when they graduate, but it is the positive of it, Supervisor, is that it's a 16 to 18 month program, and there's many players involved in it besides myself. So you're getting it from a lot of different aspects through Department of Corrections and the judges and stuff. So, but I agree with you that we do want to look to
Yep.
what happens to the graduates?
Yeah. Yep. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a
Supervisor Conrad?
just to play out that a little bit, I'm a nurse and we look at variables of individuals too. And also I have some friends who have a son in the program and they're very good supportive, individuals, very well known in the community and everything too. So I'm just kind of curious if you could track variables of these individuals too going through the court systems, because this individual has still obviously been very challenged, even though with the good support system that he has. But a lot of people don't, and that's part of the reasons why they end up in the situation that they are too. So I'm wondering if you're helping to track some of those variables of the individuals with their social structures, support systems, those social determinants of health, and then maybe do you have to tackle things a little bit differently, and individualized, kind of like the care plan is what we call it in healthcare or nursing.
Let's keep that question for next month too, because next month Judge Gearnock will be presenting. Yep. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's all.
I think that's fair. I think that's good points. And just so you know, the program is not, if each of us were in the program, we would have a slightly, we would have, some of it is standardization with regard to the first.
Of course.
Coming one like, but with regard to your care plan, yours might be totally different than mine. Mine might be, totally different than everyone else's in the room. So, but yes, you are right that we have seen that with the support of having healthy relationships with family is huge. It's with family and friends, and sometimes the family thing has broken down, but sometimes they can get. You're 100% right. They need a support system. So I agree with you. Those are other important variables to track.
All right. I think we're all set. We'll see you in 3 months for your next quarterly.
Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the review of American Rescue Plan Act funds for the court's audiovisual system.
Excuse me. So as noted in your committee report, we are reporting back to you on the use of ARPA funds as they work through the process internally through management. And so this is one project that has been reviewed and approved for using the ARPA money. It is for some AV equipment in the courtrooms to allow for continued remote appearances. And it also then it helps enable some of the paperless processes that are beneficial to both the attorneys and the court staff. So the current equipment that's in there is at the end of its life. We need to replace it so that it can remain operational. The project is expected to begin this year. We just got some new information yesterday that some of the equipment may not come in until early of 23. So we may not actually complete until next year, but that would still be within the timeline that we've got requirements of spending for ARPA. So right now we're estimating a use of $85,000, which includes a contingency. Any unused funds remain in the ARPA bucket. We only move it out once it's actually been spent.
Okay, has the equipment all been ordered at this point?
I believe most of it, if not all of it, has been ordered.
Okay, and obviously supply chain issues we don't control, so.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
As we'd like to.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where we're gonna have to wait till we get the equipment, so, yeah. Sure, Supervisor Krebs?
Is the 85,000 the total cost of the project or just the share that ARPA funds are covering?
That's the total cost of the project.
And one other question, is this just a replacement or is this expansion of that technology?
I believe it's just a replacement, but it's with newer technology, a more modern version of what we have essentially.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
I think you need a consensus of the committee on ARPA funds, so.
Okay. Does everybody agree that this is a good use of ARPA funds?
You?
Kind of see head shaking. Anybody concerned about this use of ARPA funds? Nope. Okay, I think we got a consensus. So,
All right.
Yep. I think, are you staying up for the next agenda item?
I am.
Okay, so a review of American Rescue Plan Act funds used for Emergency Operations Center.
Correct. We have an emergency operations center within our Justice Center building. It's also sometimes referred to as the sheriff's training room since it's a large room. Some of you have been in there previously. We held board meetings in there during some of the COVID so that we had room to socially distance. So that room needs numerous upgrades to some of the audio and other equipment. IT informed me actually that we're actually in violation of some of the FCC regulations, with frequencies we use when we're in that room. So there is some urgency to kind of get in line with those requirements. This has been on the plan already. The costs for the project came in higher than we had originally anticipated. So in fact, the project was technically approved during the 22 budget process. But because of the increase in cost and the new information regarding how we can use our ARPA dollars, we're just basically increasing the project estimate to $85,000. That accounts for the increased equipment costs that we're seeing and also gives us a contingency in case anything comes up once we start working. And then it also changes the funding source from a general fund transfer as previously approved in the budget to the ARPA dollars instead. And that just makes it cleaner and easier for me to report on. So I'm not tracking one project with two different buckets of money. And then because the whole project is eligible under ARPA guidance because of its use, it's a little bit cleaner for us, so.
Okay.
All right, questions on this? Supervisor Krebs?
The original budgeted amount,
Was 53,000.
and what happens to that since that was approved through a budget? Is that to be returned to the general?
Yep, it'll just
Just
remain within the
unspent.
general fund, correct?
Does any person or committee have power to redirect that?
If
Code
we
board.
wanted to use it for something else, we'd have to come and get approval through a resolution because it is a general fund transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I think you're off the hook.
Consensus again.
Oh, consensus, yeah. Is everybody good with this use of ARPA money?
I'm still trying to see where in Robert's Rules of Orders there's consensus built,
I
but
think it might have to do with ARPA.
Yeah, it's-
We're being a little flexible with Robert's rules here.
There has to be a consensus of how
Yeah.
it's being used.
Yeah.
just
And
seems so unofficial.
is anybody in objection to this use of ARPA funds? Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, last item is going to be a radio project update. So Sheriff Schulteis.
Good morning, board and committee members.
Good morning.
I had requested this on the agenda for two specific reasons. If you remember, I think at our first with the new committee, Public Safety Committee members, Captain Stacer and I kind of gave an overview of the radio project. Today, what we have here is our entire radio project team that I think could probably give a little more detail and depth of conversation as to exactly the timelines and some of the challenges that we faced and where we're headed to. But the other important part of the conversation today is we wanted to bring the committee up to date on what we think the game plan should be for the replacement of the end user gear. And when I say end user gear, that's the mobile radios that are permanently mounted in squad cars, fire trucks, ambulance, snowplow, any emergency vehicle. And then the portables that fire departments and law enforcement carry on their person, basically. So the main goal of the radio project the entire time was to make all the agencies whole, to get them on the new system and replace the old gear. But we want to make sure that we get input from public safety if you think that we're headed in the right direction. Because there's some financial aspects to this that's going to impact the county. It's going to impact possibly the individual police departments and fire departments, that I think that we need to get your input on to see if you think that we're headed in the right direction. So first off, I think what we'll do is I'll bring up our radio project manager, it's Dennis Butchholz. He can kind of go into a little discussion of where we're at with the radio project, where we're headed to, and I'll let everyone else kind of introduce themselves as they come up. Dennis?
Morning.
Morning.
If I could approach you real quick, I want to pass something out to each of you. You're going to have to share though. Just to go through some tabs. This is redundant for Mr. Krebs. We've done this before at different public safeties, and some of you have seen these before.
When you,
So this may be boring or rework, but
A good refresher.
I've got the tabs that we'll be utilizing, but this is our tip. This is one of our sites, the Jefferson location. And these are the typical plans that a communication site comes with for the construction portion of it. And just as we're going through, if you just flip over the color page, it's black and white. It's pretty harsh, actually. My printer was getting a little weak towards the end of the day. But you will see that our existing equipment building, correct, in the middle. That building is called the site perimeter there. And you can see the triangle there is your tower. And then all of the equipment, the generators there, all of the equipment, when you have a tower that's going up 180, 200, 300 feet, you want to keep the potential on the ground the same. That way, if you get lightning strikes, it all goes to the ground. It's not the same, it will go to the easiest pathway and it could damage equipment. So the importance of the ground system is like one of the biggest things on these sites. This is just not a temporary building or a quick put together building with a gen set like we would do in the service or in the Army. This grounding system, if you turn over to the pink tab, that's the next page, you will see that tower there, the triangle.
what I said.
Everybody get there all right? Should be.
Yeah.
Should say on there compound plan, pink tab, right? Yes? All right, that tower right there is gonna have grounding that goes down 36 inches all the way around it, as well as that building, all the equipment in the building, and we'll cover where that goes in the grounding equations of the panning systems and whatnot. And the generator, everything on there is gonna be 100% the same resistivity for that ground protection. One of the lengthier processes on constructing a site is the ground plans.
So is the site currently grounded like that?
Yes,
or this
Jefferson
is-
currently has because we've had that since 2006, 7, 8, when we put it, that's not when the site went in, but that's when we put in the Harris equipment originally. And then we did it the second time. Each time we go back there, we got to make sure everything's right. Everything needs to be cab welded and things of that, exothermic welds, similar metals, dissimilar metals, making them similar through a chemical compound. So when you're talking about a site, it's not typically what somebody would see. You're putting up a building with a generator backup. There's a lot of things that go into the site. And why I'm showing you all of this is, one, just to give you a little education as to the sites, and we got 10 of them out there. But just the process as we go through this document that I'm going to talk about, it will show you the different areas in this document will come more living to you than just a bunch of blocks. So if you go to the orange tab next, you'll see the floor plan. And currently we have equipment in there for the current VHF system, which was a P25 system. And obviously we're going to be bringing in more cabinets, and with technology, the cabinets get less, so that's good. So we'll be able to utilize that space. So when we hire a company like Raycom, we got Tim Romanelli back here. This is the type of work they bring their techs in to survey the sites. Where do they go best? Where do they go into the antenna P portion of the building and things of that nature? So this is just how a site would look like on the interior. And within that, there's grounding, basically making the thing like a Faraday cage. You've got number 2 ground wire over the ceiling, and if anybody's been to a site before, so pretty specialized work. The next tab we want to go to, I believe, is the yellow. And the thing I wanted to point out is the penetration area there on the top portion. Oh, I'm sorry. Yellow's the tower. My bad.
Green?
The tower is currently at Jefferson. That will show you where the new antennas are going. You see them documented there in the red? The microwave dishes. So every one of these sites, for every antenna or every piece of equipment with that antenna, the clamps that go on that to hold the antenna in place, the brackets, the antenna line, which is extremely heavy depending on what type of line and how thick, everything that is on that site needs to be accounted for and needs to be run through a structural engineer to make sure the tower could hold everything that's on there. And then through this sort of region, you have wind loading, ice loading, all that good stuff. So I wanted to show everybody what a tower document looks like, how we're going through a tower mapping. And then if you'll turn over just to the next page, not the next tab, but that next page, you'll see a cutout, that entry panel. See entry panel on page T501. That entry panel is where every individual cable would be identified, so you know where your receive is, where your transmit is, where your microwave elliptical is. Everything is mapped from the top of the tower on down, coming through those peeps. Peeps are fairly new. They weren't using them that, well, they've been using them about 25, 30 years, but we used to do it much harsher. So real good design that Raycom has put together with Arlen of Edge Engineering, who's out of Madison. And the last thing I just wanted to touch real quickly, I guess we could touch that later. All right, let me take you to the very last page of the document, E502. Now you'll see how you got your port where your antenna lines come through at the bottom here, right? This document here, this portion, the panty, that's going to itemize where all of your electrical connections are going to be. So even the ground bar in the communication sites have specifics to what gets grounded. So you're just not taking everything and just running it to ground like we typically would at a house. It's all divided out into what you see there, producers and acceptors and things of that nature. These documents were completed by Edge, and now I'll sort of take you around here and then we'll do questions if that's okay. I'm going to introduce our team first. We got quite a bit. Some are here. Tim Romanelli. He's Raycom's business manager, and he's our account manager. The handsome gentleman back there in the red, that is John Tramberg. He's our radio administrator. He's been doing this for quite a while with our old administrator, knows very well John Schrader. He used to work with him, and John's been running things for us since that employment change happened. Of course, you know Rob and Marty. Sixto is my project support specialist on my team. Within Tim's team, not here, out of their Iowa office, is Rick Carlin. He's the equivalent of me. He's our project manager. And what's nice about having these guys do that project versus the last company or the Harris challenges we had on the last project, if you remember, we never had a constant team. We'd get 6-8 months down the road, project manager change, quit. We had 3 different project managers on the last 4 projects I've done. Every time you got to go through the history, get people up to speed, you lose time. It's just a real bad thing. So when we looked at all of this, we wanted to look to a committed team that was going to be here, that we could pick up a phone and talk to somebody. So in saying that, we got Rick Harlan. He's our project manager. Matt Gebel, correct? And he is our, for lack of better terms, design engineer. He's the one doing all the propagation studies on how far the signals will go, what the level of coverage is. He's really the brains of the operation on their end. Ryan Butler, he's the gentleman on there out of Iowa also. He is our backbone microwave specialist. So he's the guy that will be inputting into the microwave systems that we'll be replacing. And Taja Hoolan, correct? She's just got brought on board for a project support specialist to the team. So Raycom is showing a commitment with personnel. We never seen that over the last two projects from 2007 or the one in 2016. I think one of the board members at the one meeting, Bronwell, said to their brass, if your guy's not gonna be here, you're gonna be here, right, Marilyn? We got a pretty stable team on our end. We got the general communications, and they've got sort of a weird relationship because they are working with Raycom as a subcontractor for the actual radio equipment installations and infrastructure. But they also work directly with us. Washington County has a radio administrator. So within that, not here present, is Dwayne Wilborn. And Dwayne has been with us on the system since 2006, 2007. He usually resides out of the Jefferson location, this site right here. There's a spare room up there where he's got all of his troubleshooting equipment. He's monitoring that system 32 hours a week solidly or whatever it takes. So general communications, and then John Senior also is part of the team. He is our service manager. He's done the installations for Rob upstairs in his EOC areas and a lot of the base radio installations all over the county and at our other projects in Ozaki. Our frequency coordinator is Carl Guzzi. That name sounds familiar. He used to be the state of Wisconsin's frequency coordinator. So he's retired now and he's doing our frequency coordination. That's real important because we got to deal with Region 54 out of Illinois and Joliet for our region here to get plans approved for our frequencies. So Carl's an important guy to have to lock in our frequencies. He is not here today. And of course, I'm Dennis, and you guys know the rest of the team. And our civil engineer, Edge, Arlen Ostring out of Madison, Edge Consultants. They've done work for you guys for the last 17 years, and they're working on, they're very, very good engineers, PE, structural, what we need for towers. So in saying that, that's our team. And now I'll give you the fun news, the stuff you're waiting for, the update itself. We're at the phase 2 point. The phase 2 point, if you went back to when this was really consumed, like April 30th, 2019, I believe I briefed the Public Safety Board. And the step 2 phase was going to be to do all of the civils, identify all these studies that were required within it, from the grounding to propagation, and actually construct these sites. All right. Well, obviously we have no sites constructed at this point, and we're about 14 months into it. And if we want to just get through the reasons that we originally had this thing slated for about 20 months from cradle to grave, we're at 14 now. We have locked down all of our sites. Site acquisition is always the hardest, whether you're at Nextel, Sprint, Cellular, whatever. Getting the actual towers to work for the propagation to connect to the other towers for backhaul is always the hard part. So what took us so long here and to go restarts or rework, as we like to call it, one, I'll just throw out the pandemic that was there. So there wasn't a whole lot of work going on in that time frame. The tough things were originally we're going to work with the Newburgh, the fire department over there, to put one of our tower sites there. Well, that became encumbered due to the fact of what I think that community expected for having a tower site there. So at that point, we looked at a place in Cheeseville for a secondary site, and that looked promising, and we did the propagation studies, and that would have worked also. But around that same time, we were managing the Ozaki project, and Ozaki was in need of a tower in their upper part of their county for better coverage and to make their system more geographic diverse. So Jason Zwinnell, the county administrator over there, had tasked us with finding a location for a site. So meanwhile, while we're looking for your sites here, we had Pinnacle site come available over at Ozaki. Looked like it was going to be a slam dunk, would help both counties. Both counties have their microwave dishes for their both systems, each system separate. Plus it's a connectivity point for future doing things together later with Ozaki. So a lot of good thought process. Unfortunately, we had these people following us around for 6 months that were not in my backyarders from Ozaki. So we had to go through the same process there to land on a Pinnacle site. So we looked at an asphalt plat. Anyways, we finally got all of our sites. We got agreement. It passed Ozaki about 2.5 months ago. So the Pinnacle site has been agreed on. We've already shown the propagation studies from Washington County, our system, and Ozaki, and it had to meet both of theirs. It couldn't just be good for Washington, not Ozaki, because you're talking about spending, $900,000. You want to divide it down the middle. It should work for everybody. So that was the reasons for delay. We had to do rework on 3 different sites at each county. Any questions on site acquisition up to this point? Because I'm jumping around. Go ahead, Brian.
The Pinnacle site, is this a brand new site then?
Yes, it's going to be what we call a greenfield. It's going to be a brand new, it's a 300-footer self-supporting tower.
Okay.
It's going to have a shelter. One of the requirements by their radio administrator on their side wanted the shelter to have the internal room for the generator to be inside versus our generators in Washington are outside. So that's been a little bit difficult, but on supply chain issues.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
When you have the generator inside, don't you have problems with the fuel being in a building, fire hazard?
No,
No?
they've got the darn thing, everything's underneath through the ground. There's exhausted and they've been out there for 20 years.
Okay.
I personally, if I was maintaining a generator, it'd be nice to be indoors. But I tell you what, those little pesky mice that we clean out a gazillion, I don't know if you can say mice guts here, but lots of parts in these generators because they like warmth in the winter. They get in buildings too. So that would be the better question. Do you want these guys potentially coming into the next door over into your equipment room? So, yeah, but that has been resolved. Other questions on this up to this point? Yes, sir.
Pinnacle is a new site. How many other new sites do you have? Is Aaron a new site?
Aaron will be a new site, and Pinnacle are only 2 greenfields, correct? Kewaskum is not a greenfield, but we're building a self-supporting tower in Kewaskum. Not a true greenfield, we're just moving the shelter, that sort of thing. Well, actually, the tower is going to be not a greenfield, 2 greenfields, sir. All right, so moving on and upward here.
I appreciate your passion and your knowledge that you're showing and all the detail here.
I appreciate you, appreciate me.
I appreciate you guys appreciating each other.
Hey, Brian, I'm stuck at a 4-way stop here in a minute, brother. All right, so I gave you the reasons why that was lengthened in scope. But site acquisition is now completed. Now we're dealing with Region 54 on that FCC and FAA for our frequencies. That's Carl Guzzi. We cannot really file. We could file for it now, but then we'd be filing for extensions. The rule is once you file for frequencies, they got to be up and running in a year. What we've done in past in other states is put a transmitter that came close to those frequencies and just pounded on transmit occasionally, and that sufficed. You got to pay a fee for lengthening this process past the 12 months. So what Carl has instructed us is get your sites constructed. When you get ready to start receiving infrastructure equipment, the actual big cabinets of radio equipment and microwave, that's when we'll go out for applying for those frequencies. That's going to be the next big hurdle for us getting through frequencies. Raycom and Tim, if I step on you, just cut me off. But within their project management team having these discussions yesterday, this is what's going on with them directly in August. They'll be doing the interop design. They'll be doing shelter vendor visits. We're looking to get that shelter for Pinnacle and Aaron, so they're trying to locate those shelters for moving for our equipment. They're doing bid packages for subcontractors currently, correct, with Arlen Ostring of Edge. He actually does the documentation that everything's right. And you guys have worked with Buildcore, I believe, which is the purchasing person we're always directed to make sure we're following all the laws and it's out to bid long enough and that sort of thing. Tower generators have been put on order, I believe Rick said yesterday. And towers are going to be ordered here soon, but we got to lock down a few things on the tower. In September, bid packages are due to be completed, and then that public bid will take place in September. October, bids will be reviewed. It's about a 5-day reviewing process. At that point, they'll select their vendor, and we'll have the subcontractors. So that puts us out, if you're keeping track, that puts us at Halloween, all right? So first project here, I remember being 47 below trying to break dirt out at Slinger, or we used to call Lover's Lane when Mike Hetzel was here. Not much construction going on in Wisconsin in here in January and February. So what we're probably going to do is we'll probably do bits and pieces of it, but we're going to make up time. We'll make up time when we're able to rent cranes for all the sites at once versus piecemealing it. So we are going to gain efficiencies here. Usually the stuff that we've done now is not done to the second or third part of the phase. Then you get into the oh craps, and then you get change orders. Well, if you remember when we went back, we did this totally a different way. We went after all the studies first, quantifying everything. So we took a lot of the assumptions out so we don't bring change orders. So we're actually doing things, I think, more right than what the corporate world would typically do. We still have 12 to 14 additional months after that of the infrastructure equipment actually being installed. And at that point, once the infrastructure is, you got to test it, make sure it works. You got to do an ATP program, a coverage test in which we go all around the county. Last one was 1/10 by 1/10 of a mile. Every 1/10 of a mile you stop, say, can you hear me? Hello, make sure the base hears, quantify the system, what your actual coverage is. We're 95% coverage, so we got to meet 95. I think we're slated to be at 97.6 when we're done. Yeah, so we're looking, coverage is going to be enhanced.
And to be clear, that 97.6%, that's the handheld units coverage, right?
That is portable outdoor coverage and indoor. Everything.
Okay, so the in-squad units, they'll have 100% coverage, right?
Well, we're up around, well, that thing's always been about 98, even when we did the VHF. That's going to be, yeah. I mean, you'll have some areas, it's not a wire, but yeah, it's going to be.
Okay.
What's a mobile's TX output? A wattage?
What will it be? Or another 50?
Yeah, 50 watts. So portable's 3 watt or 6 times? 5. Okay, so there's your difference. There's your.
Okay. Yep. Did somebody else have a question too? No?
So is our coverage testing, was that pretty much summer of 24 based off your timeline?
Okay, so.
Because you need to have foliage for your testing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have, you remember good old full foliage, my brother. And we always get there around October rushing it, right? And we end up doing it the next year. Let me think through that a minute, Brian.
Because you said it was like 12, 14 months of
Construction for infrastructure, we get through that. Yeah, I'd say you'd be completed around 24, and then you're looking at doing that end user phase to where the 1-for-1 exchanges with the fire department, the 2 disciplines, public safety, fire and police that Sheriff Marty alluded to. And then you got the other discipline of the DPW.
Okay.
So, and it's 1-for-1, you know, they got it. If they got a unit on the system, they can't do what I've had happen at the other county to where a whole bunch of radios show up and say, where's my replacement? And then you got radios that are not even capable of being on the system. They were never on there.
not a qualified trade-in.
So you're right. So Captain Stacer has went back with the original numbers we had back in 2006, verified with those individuals to see what units they were requesting, make sure the numbers were gelling. And then our fail-safe is going to be, John is going to be our gatekeeper because he'll be able to look at the radio, okay? Slinger had 28 radios. Well, let's verify that. He'll be able to go in the database and see who's got an active lid number. So that's your check and balance. It's not bad. So we don't get over our skis with end user gear. It's pretty expensive equipment when you're $8,000-$10,000 a unit. So other notables, very last, other notables. Our HVAC units in most cases are between 17 and 20 years old out there from the initial project. So we're going to have HVAC replacements going on. We've met with all of the vendors and got that information over to Raycom for fulfillment of getting all our HVACs done. The Slinger site has a burned out light, is it? And currently, burnt out light wiring, and then controllers moving from one building to another, which controls our lighting system out at Slinger. Normally, that would be like one of the last things to do, but that's a pretty imperative thing. So Tim has taken that, got pricing on it. They'll be doing that just to stopgap us.
Is that the blinky light?
Yeah,
Okay.
the ones that the neighbors like.
Yeah.
Probably shot it. No. You know.
But that's a pretty important light for
Yes,
those on
yes.
there. Yeah,
If you're a helicopter pilot, I imagine.
yeah.
And then we're also going to have to work with the lovely folks at Dixon Engineering. We have a long relationship with them. They're out of many areas in the Midwest, but Dixon Engineering is Hartford, the village of Hartford's vendor for their water tanks. Anybody that's ever done any work on a water tank, it's right up there with the church, okay? It's really.
St. Killian's Church, right?
What's that?
The St. Killian's Church, that water tank?
Yes. So we're gonna have to add an antenna to their, what they call their painter's ring. On water tanks, they got painter's rings for painting the tower. That also acts as mounting places for antennas. Anytime you do anything to a tank, and we're not even purging the tank with welding or anything, it's gonna be on the outside and run the antenna line on the outside. Anytime you put anything on a tank, you gotta go through their engineering, whoever it is. We're gonna have to pay Joe Hoban, that's the guy at Dixon. I've known him a long time, does good work. And their gentleman over there, his name is Brian Rhodes out of Hartford. He's their water superintendent. Worked with him. It shouldn't be a problem. We had much more difficulties in the last project with the Germantown water tank versus the Hartford water tank. There is a difference. One of them was made in like 1946 though. That'd be the Hartford one. Any other questions? Anything?
I guess, now that the project's restarting up again or moving again, what discussion or what has this committee not made a decision on or direction that you guys need? Is there, or do you guys already have your marching orders and it's at this point just
Yeah, I think.
running the clock out?
I don't want to speak for the sheriff or captain, but I think we just want, we're all a team. We're on the same team for Washington. We want you guys to be informed in every aspect. If you got any input that might help the project, but you got to know what the other portion, right hand's doing, what the left hand doing. So we've always did it that way in public safety over the last projects.
But
And that way, if, end users may come to you and you may hear something just because you're on a public safety board and
at this point, does it appear that we have made most of our decisions or, the design is substantially complete that?
Well, it's one of the things we wanted to come before you today, and we wanted to just kind of run through you kind of what our thoughts are with respect to these unit replacements. So we've got some history with this back in 2010 when we did the project the first time. We bought everybody radios from fire, police, DPW. Did we make some mistakes in that? Possibly. But we want to try to do it right moving forward. And so I kind of got a model of how we think this should work. And I'll just kind of give it to you. But so when we did the project in 2010, we bought everybody a radio. We did the overlay project that was completed in 2018. The county built the overlay system, but the municipalities had to buy the radios if they wanted to work on the system. So there's about 490 of those new radios like this that work on their dual band radios that the municipalities bought. They're only a few years old, and the very same radio that we're proposing buying hasn't changed. It's still the XL200 portable. So part of our model said in this whole thing, and I think the sheriff has said it from the beginning, that we're building this highway. And if we're going to take the old highway away and bring the new one, we're only going to replace the radios that won't work on the new highway. Because those 490 radios will work on the system, our intention is not to necessarily replace them, but replace the old VHF only ones that no longer will work on the highway. And of those radios, I should have added them up, but we're looking at like 194 law enforcement mobile radio. 164 law enforcement mobile radios, 133 fire mobile radios, 50 DPW mobiles, 194 law enforcement portables, 270 fire portables, 100 portables for our jail, and 263 highway shop municipal DPW portable radios. Those are radios that will not work on the system once the transition is over. So our plan is we just want to replace those radios and not replace the 490 that are on there. Now, we know it's going to cause, there's going to be some pushback on that because they're going to say, well, this radio is 5 years old or 7 years old. And I think what we would say to them is, but you had the ability to be able to use the new system for this last 7 years, and the radio itself hasn't changed. But to try to make these people whole that have already bought these 490 radios, of those radios that were purchased that were Harris, we would propose that we would take those radios back in and do a factory refresh on them. So we would fix any cosmetic damage. We would install the latest firmware in it because it's just a computer. And we would provide 2 new batteries for those existing radios that are out there in lieu of having to buy all the radios for everybody.
And will that then be the equivalent that they will have a radio that's as good as the brand new radio?
Yes. And that's what the industry professionals are telling us.
Yep, okay.
And, but we wanted, before we roll this out to the fire chiefs and police chiefs, we really wanted to come here and get your input as to, are you on board with this? Now, in the last thing, we bought different portables for the fire guys than we did for law enforcement. I don't know that fire was ever really happy with that old portable that they had back in 2011. And of the 490 that were purchased in 2018, the fire guys got the same radio that law enforcement has. So in this purchase, we do everybody the same. Everybody's getting the same radio to alleviate all that.
Yeah.
That you got a better radio than we got or whatever. This is a proven radio. Everybody seems to like it. The only difference being, and again, are the feature packages within the radio. And so what we're proposing is law enforcement will get encrypted channels, and that encryption feature, there's a price tag on it. So every radio that has an encrypted feature will have to, there's an upcharge to it. But conversely, we'll give the fire guys the immersible radio option, the one that can be dunked in water and not affect the performance of the radio. We won't give that to law enforcement. And so at the end of the day, the cost of the two is pretty negligible because one gets one feature and the other gets the other feature.
What about DPW?
So DPW and the jail really don't need a dual band radio. They really only need a single band radio because they're really not working out of county or with different agencies. And so our proposal would be to give them a single band. In DPW's case, it would be a DPW grade radio. And in the jail's case, it would be a law enforcement radio, meaning it would have encryption, but it wouldn't have the dual band capability. And that knocks off some price on it, but doesn't take the quality out of the radio itself. Again, think about features within a computer. You're paying for all these different features.
One other question. Sorry if I'm kind of jumping in here in the middle a bit, but since the county purchased radios in 2010, how many additional non-county purchased radios have other municipalities or departments purchased but added to our system?
It's just a handful.
Well, there's 490 that they purchased themselves.
But those are the ones. Those were ones that were. Some of those I would assume were replacing originally county purchased radios when they made that upgrade to the 700 system. I'm thinking of, I'll say West Bend, for example, if they added 10 officers since 2010 and they purchased 10 more additional radios that the county never furnished, are they going to?
Yes.
Are those radio any net new radios since 2010, are those kind of being tracked separately so they're not, the costs are separated?
Option, right?
So what we did is we sent out letters to everyone and we, the data can be gauged by what we see on the system and said, how many radios are you currently using on the system? Not how many radios that don't work anymore that are in some back room, or radios that were put in a box and never taken out. How many are you actually using on the system? And so, for example, West Bend PD did in fact grow. And I think they've purchased 40 of the new portables in 2018, right?
Yeah, 40.
So they're using those 40 new portables, but they're also using some of their old supply, the ones that we purchased in 2011. Well, what I would say is, of those old ones that they're using, we would replace those with new XL200s.
So the 2010s are original baseline, kind of a sub baseline is the 2018 series.
Yep, exactly.
The total fleet size has not changed very much. It was 16, 20,
16, 16,
12 years, 10, 12 years ago, and it's 1660 now. So there hasn't been a huge.
I remember hearing originally some departments, requested more than they maybe really.
And I gotta be honest with you, in this go around, I really had some good conversation with the department heads of whatever. And I think we're all for the most part, I would say in the high 90s, everybody understood and gave me counts of the radios that they're currently using. I think there was this belief in the past, just take what you can get type thing. And I think we've come full circle now, and we've shown that we do have a good working relationship with the municipalities, at least with respect to the radio system. We spend a lot of money on maintenance contract, but at the end of the day, when there's no complaints, that's money well spent, and the users are comfortable with the system. And so I think we do have good buy-in and good partnership with the municipalities, whereas before maybe there was a little apprehension, not knowing how this was going to work, moving to a county run system. So I think, that we've got some pretty good, honest feedback. So.
Okay. And over the past couple of months, but besides your communication, Johnny did an actual physical visit to every agency, because we had to know on a fire apparatus, how those radios are configured, because it makes a big difference in the pricing of them. So the communication, the actual physical audit, so we know exactly what is in use, not 10 radios that have been sitting in a closet, and haven't been touched for years. These are actual in-use radios that will be replaced one for one.
Okay. Also, do your numbers include like the PRD type units? Would those be under law enforcement type units?
So the big Cedar Lake Patrol in
Yeah.
Hartford, town of Hartford, those were counted.
Okay.
So basically, I'm sorry, Chairman, go ahead.
Do they normally have like a couple spares on the shelf or
Yes.
just in case?
Yeah, I'm sure the cash radios were reported to us.
Okay.
So the other component to what I'm kind of proposing is, so we would give these radio, when we talk about a 1-for-1 radio, it would come in a package. So included in that package would be the radio. It would be the unique feature string specific to that discipline. I mentioned before, either encryption or immersible or whatever. 2 batteries, a single bay, a charging station, an external speaker mic. I don't have it on this one, but it would be worn on the lapel. And a holster and or belt clip. DPW guys usually use belt clips, fire guys use the cross holsters, and the cops use the ones that go under duty belts. So that would be a package. That would be like standard. The county would go for that. There are other features that these individual agencies may want. But because we're going to give you the Chevrolet, the nice Chevrolet to drive on it, we're not going to get you the Cadillac. We've created an option list that these other people want to buy up. So for example, if the fire department wants an intrinsically safe radio, there is a negotiated, be part of our contract. It'll be cheaper than what you can go buy it, but a price per radio, what it'll cost for that particular feature. That would be passed on, and municipality would opt to do that. They pay it themselves. The county wouldn't necessarily pay for that. LTE, so these radios have the ability to be able to be LTE like your phone, and so you can be down in Milwaukee and not even be in line to our site, but still work on the system through cellular. Again, it's a nice feature, but that would be something that, the muni, should they decide to have several of their radios or all their radios, that would be something we would suggest be passed on. Multiple bay chargers, if you're not satisfied with the single bay charger and you want a 6-bay charger to put in your back room, that would be on you, as the municipality to get it. And there are other features on there as well. I mean, there's an option list that we went through with the pricing, but I just think that that's a good way to do it, and it'll alleviate any sort of, I think we should have this or that. I think we've been consistent in our messaging as to what we propose, how this would work, and I think it just continues down that road of consistency, and our messaging has been the same then since we initiated this process.
Okay. Are we looking for consensus on this, or is this a decision
I can
thing today?
things about the process that we've been through. One of the big decisions made about the radios was the Sheriff's Department is getting dual band radios, and they've been buying dual band radios previously. One of the less